Hi. I wish I could be in New Zealand to greet you, but this is going to have to be the next best thing. I am delighted to have the chance to talk to you in particular because Ambassador Hubner is one of the best ambassadors we have and an old friend of mine and a creative thinker and innovator, which is exactly why all of you have been brought together. I want to talk a little bit about the world you're in and how to think about power and innovation in that world, because that's really what this conference is about. The first thing to say is you are all what we call digital natives. You have grown up in the digital world. You start from a place of deep interconnection. The other thing I noticed reading over your bios is you're what we call globals. Many of you have a parent from one country and another parent from another, and you've grown up in New Zealand, or you were born in New Zealand, but you've spent time abroad. You are familiar with different cultures, different languages. You are globals. You are really the leaders of this century. As a professor at Princeton, I have noticed that many of our most interesting students, our most entrepreneurial students, our leaders, are of the same profile. They're globals, and it's a very exciting time to be a global. So let's talk a little bit about power and how to think about how to get things done in a deeply interconnected world. As I said, you start as digital natives from a place of deep interconnection. That seems natural to you. That's what you know. But my generation grew up starting from a place of separation. And the way to think about that is to think about the international system. My generation grew up thinking about states as billiard balls. Indeed, some of the famous work in international relations talks about states as billiard balls colliding into each other and creating action and reaction. And that's how we thought about international politics, as these states that interacted with each other as separate entities. And balance of power theory, thinking about international politics, that was the starting point. Your world is a world of interconnection, where you don't even think internationally about separate states. You think about people all over the world who are connected at the touch of a button. And that is a very different starting point, and it gives you a sense of nearly infinite possibility, because for the first time in human history, it is possible, in theory, to communicate with every single person on the face of the earth. In theory, if everybody had a cell phone and we had, a global network, you could send a text to every human on the face of the earth. You could mobilize action. You can solve problems by actually connecting across borders. And that, again, gives you a sense of wonderful possibility and an ability to share ideas and knowledge as never before. Let's then think about power, because power, again, in the world I grew up in, and still today, is what you might call power over. It is how one person, one institution makes another person or another state do something. And generally it's the power to compel somebody else to do something. That's power over. You exercise power by telling others what to do or making them do what you want. In a deeply interconnected world, power actually comes from how connected you are. If you think about it from Facebook or any kind of internet space, it's the person who has the most contacts, who has the most ability to get things done. We've actually seen that in a very negative light, in that if you think about 9/11, they proved that Mohammed Atta was the leader of the 19 terrorists who carried out the attack on 9/11. They found that out because he was the only one who was connected to everyone else. That is the power of leadership. It's the power of mobilizing others. It's who is the most interconnected. But that kind of power, being interconnected, is not power over. It's power with. It is the power of working with lots of others and coming together to be far more powerful than any one alone. And that's a very different kind of power. When you talk about power over, you have to have one person or one institution at the top who tells everybody else what to do. But power with, you want to connect as many different people as possible, bring them together and mobilize them. You still need the people who are leading that network, who are actually at the center, who are the ones who are the most interconnected and generating ideas. But once that gets going, there's power all through the network because everyone can talk to everyone else and share ideas. So if you think about power as being interconnected, then you think about, well, what do you want to do with that power? And the answer is you want to come up with new ideas that can solve global problems. And you want to share those ideas as widely as possible. Give you a very concrete example. Somebody in Africa has an app that will help them actually tell the weather for their crops, or as someone told me recently, help their cows become infinitely more productive in producing milk. Maybe something you don't think about all the time, but very important for African farmers. Those ideas, that app, can be shared, and when it's shared, it can be adapted to many other circumstances. And indeed, you live in a world where we're generating apps all the time, exchanging them and customizing them. That's the force of innovation. Innovation comes from creative disruption. It comes from getting as many different perspectives as you can together, which breaks up groupthink, and forces people to suddenly see something they thought they knew in a very different way. That's creative disruption. And right now, in this conference, you're an example of that. You've been brought together from many different places, from universities, from across New Zealand, and by coming together and by focusing on common issues and common problems and listening to talks like this one, all of you are thinking and you're exchanging your thinking, and that creates disruptions. You suddenly have to think about something differently, and that's how ideas are born. And when ideas are born, innovation follows. So it's an exciting time to be a digital native in a deeply interconnected world. That same interconnectedness can give us lots of problems, from global disease, pandemics, to climate change, to terrorism, but it can also give us enormous opportunities to gather knowledge from places we've never been able to before, to empower individuals to think for themselves, share ideas, and have the power with others to solve problems. So I wish you a wonderful conference. I know that your network will stay together, that you'll have opportunities to talk on Facebook after this conference, and I hope you will be a group of global leaders who will stay together and apply your knowledge to solving whatever problems you encounter in New Zealand and probably globally down the road. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and have a wonderful conference.